Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, is one of my favorite characters. But the one thing that I find pretty interesting about him is how his power seems to fluctuate throughout the story, and how his power scaling is all over the place. Like, if you were to compare Kakashi from the first time we see him fight to the last time, it's almost like they're completely different characters. Kakashi's power progression is more or less linear until we get to the war arc where it shoots through the roof, similar to Naruto and Sasuke. Except it makes more sense with those two, since they're both going through their adolescence and they unlock new forms or abilities. Kakashi's progression seems to be unexplainable, which brings me to today's video. At which point of the story does Kakashi surpass each Akatsuki member? Well, that's what we're here to figure out today. Make sure you hit that notification bell, and other than that, let's get right to it. Let's go by chronological order and discuss part 1 Kakashi. While Kakashi wasn't weak in the beginning of the series, he was definitely not contending with the Akatsuki by then. Something solidified by the few encounters he has with Akatsuki level opponents, and both times Kakashi was completely outclassed. Now to be fair, Kakashi's encounters were with some of the stronger Akatsuki members, but it's not like he stood a chance. Part 1 Kakashi, lore-wise, is comparable to Kabuto, and while Kabuto isn't weak or anything, he's nowhere near Akatsuki level by then. I don't even think part 1 Kakashi could even take down Hidan, who's universally agreed to be the weakest Akatsuki member. Hidan clashes with Shippuden Kakashi and seems to be relative to him in taijutsu and speed when he has the Sharingan active. Part 1 Kakashi could barely use the Sharingan altogether. Hidan also massively outscales Asuma and was only defeated by him when pinned in place by Shikamaru, and Asuma is considered to be pretty relative to Kakashi in part 1. Just like Naruto, Kakashi would have to train over the time skip in order to contend with the Akatsuki. Now, let's talk about early Shippuden Kakashi. Just like his 3 students, Kakashi trained over the time period, and now not only can he keep both Naruto and Sakura at bay, but he's also been practicing how to use his Mangekyo Sharingan, and can use the base Sharingan without having it drain as much chakra as it did in part 1. While this Kakashi is a lot better equipped in facing the Akatsuki, he's still got his ways to go. The only member I can see early Shippuden Kakashi defeating is Hidan. Shikamaru was able to figure out Hidan's immortality gimmick relatively quick, and Kakashi was stated to be smarter than Shikamaru. That, and considering the fact that this Kakashi did actually clash with Hidan working alongside Kakuzu's hearts, and managed to survive, tells me that he stands a much better chance in a 1v1. Kakashi recognized Kakuzu as a much bigger threat than Hidan when he faced the duo, and if he was comfortable enough in leaving Shikamaru deal with Hidan alone, I'm pretty sure he could have dealt with him by himself. Unless Hidan pulls a fast one on Kakashi and gets blood. But I think in terms of raw stats, early Shippuden Kakashi does surpass him. That being said, I think that's the only Akatsuki member that early Shippuden Kakashi confidently surpasses. Every time we see Kakashi go up against an Akatsuki member, he's A, backed up by some support ninja, and B, he ends up losing. So the narrative that this Kakashi hasn't surpassed the average Akatsuki member yet is consistent. Middle tier Akatsuki members such as Deidara, Sasori, and Kakuzu have too much firepower in their arsenal for the slow stamina Kakashi to defeat in a 1v1. I know that Kakashi managed to snipe away Deidara's arm, but that was a weakened Deidara that was holding back, as he was low on clay, had already lost an arm to Gaara, and couldn't use his stronger hacks since Naruto was right beside Kakashi, and the Akatsuki need to capture the Jinchuriki alive. While Kakashi does have lightning to deal with Deidara's clay, and the Sharingan could spot the C4 miniature bombs, he doesn't have the stamina to deal with all that Deidara can dish out. And unlike Sasuke, he can't fly, and he can't run lightning through his body. Sasuke barely made it out of that fight. Sasori and Kakuzu also have overwhelming arsenals that I can't see early Shippuden Kakashi handling, such as the several puppets and their hidden poison mechanisms, and the 4 additional hearts that were already giving Kakashi a tough time. Moving on to mid Shippuden Kakashi, The only difference really between this Kakashi and the previous one is that Kakashi is a lot more proficient in using the Mangekyo, unlike the one that struggled in maintaining the Kamui against Deidara. That being said, it's still very taxing to use, and he straight up dies after using it twice in the Pain arc. This is when Kakashi starts contending with the middle tier Akatsuki and stops being so outclassed, though I would say he hasn't surpassed them just yet. His Kamui's gotten so precise that he could teleport a nail without Pain even noticing, and it's so fast that it could take care of Sasuke's Susanoo arrows. So given those feats, I'd say that he could probably protect himself from any attack that the Akatsuki could throw at him, except for maybe the C4. The problem is that he can't do that for long. This Kakashi tires himself out pretty quickly using Kamui, and even though he's cleared the gap up a bit, I still can't say that he'd surpass Deidara, Sasori, or Kakuzu yet. Not saying that he can't win at all, but that it's not a guaranteed win. For example, this Kakashi going up against Sasori could go either way. If Sasori gets him with poison, then it's GG. And I'm not saying that it'll be easy to tag Kakashi, but all of Sasori's puppets have their weapons laced with poison, and he's got like over 100 puppets, so all it takes is one slash. I can see Kakashi pulling stunts like hiding in the ground and using a lightning clone to bait the third Kazekage, then catching Sasori off guard by destroying it with a Raikiri. And if Kakashi manages to get Sasori down to his puppet core body, he could just snipe his heart away with Kamui. Like, he could do that, but you'd have to assume that he defeats Hiroko, the third Kazekage, all while evading all the poisons in Sasori's disposal. Against Kakuzu, I do think Kakashi has some win potentials, but overall I think he'd lose. I mean, this Kakashi's not that far from the one that was fighting Kakuzu when struggling. Kakashi's best feat against Kakuzu then was taking down his water heart, which he only managed to pull off because he ambushed Kakuzu from behind. You could argue that he could just do the same move until Kakuzu runs out of hearts, but if it were that easy, you'd think Kakashi would have tried it again. It seems like Kakashi can only really get him with the Raikiri when he's off guard or when he's been shredded by the Rasen Shuriken, but basically not at full strength. I know what everyone's gonna say, Kakashi didn't get to use Kamui against Kakuzu, so how would mid-Shippuden Kakashi fare against him with the Mangekyo? The thing about this is, this Kakashi can use two really efficient Kamui shots, but the problem is that once he uses them, he'll be more or less done. So he'd have to kill Kakuzu with the Kamui. Kamui is such a broken ability, so he could potentially kill Kakuzu with it, but he might need his War Arc version to get the definite win. The things that this Kakashi was able to Kamui were a nail, a missile, and a Susanoo arrow. If we were to say that Kakashi can only really Kamui away one of Kakuzu's hearts with each shot, then it would be GG for Kakashi, since he can only really use it twice. For Deidara, he could probably deal with the landmines with the Raikiri and hiding in the ground. And his best scenario would be if he manages to Kamui both of Deidara's arms off, but Deidara could still eat the clay and use the C4, while Kakashi would be left on the brink of death. So for mid-Shippuden Kakashi, I'd say that he's beyond surpassed Hidan and contends with middle tier Akatsuki, but I wouldn't say that he's surpassed them just yet. But now that we get to War Arc Kakashi, everything changes. Kakashi becomes a completely different beast, and this version of him spams lightning jutsu and Kamui without it exhausting him to the same extent as it used to. It's never really explained why his stamina improved so much, but it's usually accepted that after the Zabuza fight, Kakashi gets a resolve amp, and that makes him fight to his fullest extent. By this point, he's beyond surpassed Deidara, Sasori, and Kakuzu. He already had the arsenal to deal with them before, and just lacked the stamina. Now he can actually contend with the more top tier members. I'd say that this Kakashi has possibly surpassed Kisame. His mastery of all these crazy lightning jutsu, like the lightning cable, would give him the edge against the Sharkman. I mean, maybe Samehara can absorb it since it's elemental chakra, but then Kakashi can just Kamui, GG. Samehara can't absorb Kamui. Maybe you could argue that Kisame could regenerate any body part sniped by Kamui, But this Kakashi can actually just Kamui all of Kisame. He's been shown able to Kamui the Rasengan from a moving KCM Naruto. You know, the same one that blitzed Kisame in an instant. So not only can he send Kisame away, but he could do it so fast that Kisame won't realize what hit him. He's gonna have to rely on Kamui to win though. Now these two are probably the hardest to contend, Itachi and Pain. I think that Arc Kakashi is in a similar tier as these two, but doesn't really fully surpass them yet. With Arc Kakashi and Itachi, I can see it going either way really. I think Kamui is making a joke out of the Amaterasu, and Kakashi's experience with Tsukuyomi means that he probably won't get caught again. The Susanoo spirit weapons of the Totsuka blade and the Yara mirror are gonna be Kakashi's real worry here. Though it's possible that Kakashi could bypass the Yara mirror with Kamui if he rips a hole inside of it or something. Kakashi could potentially teleport Itachi's Susanoo in its entirety. He was able to send the entire 8 tails to Kamui, and later on, even without that cloak, he was able to Kamui rip apart the Ghetto Mazu. Itachi, however, is both really fast and swift, and he usually uses crow clones and lets his enemies think they got the upper hand, just to one-shot them from behind. I think this battle boils down to how Kakashi's Kamui works against the Susanoo, how Itachi reacts to Kamui, and can he formulate a plan around it to catch Kakashi off guard. And it's not just the Totsuka blade. If Itachi catches him with Tsukuyomi or the Izanami, then he's got it. This isn't a Kakashi versus Itachi video, so all I'm concerned with is whether Kakashi has surpassed Itachi, and since both have challenging win cons, I'd say not yet, but he's in Itachi's weight class. The same could be said about Pain. I don't think he's surpassed Pain just yet, and I don't know if he'd be able to beat all 6 paths at once if he faced them. If we look at Kakashi's fight against Pain, we know that Kakashi faced only 2 paths. Admittedly the strongest paths, but still, nowhere near Pain's full power since Nagato's chakra was distributed amongst all the paths. Plus Kakashi had backup, and worst of all, he ended up dying. I know he died from the Kamui, but still, not the best performance. And while Arc Kakashi is much stronger, I don't know if it's a big enough amp to turn the tide from losing to 2 paths to outright stomping all 6. Kakashi could handle the Chibaku Tensei with Kamui, but he'd still have no answer to Shinra Tensei. Him removing a path completely also isn't that effective, since the animal path can summon the rest of the pains, so it maybe can summon the teleported path out of Kamui? I don't know. And then we get to Obito, which I doubt I have to talk about that much. As I've stated before, the strongest thing in Kakashi's arsenal is Kamui, which we've seen Obito counter pretty easily. And even when they were fighting in the Kamui space, and Kakashi seemed to be damaging Obito at certain points, this Obito isn't taking the fight seriously at all. He doesn't even bother using the Renegon or Wood style, and is just trying to get the cursed seal off of his heart so he could become the 10 Tails Jinchuriki. So this war, Kakashi surpasses most of the middle tier Akatsuki, maybe surpasses Kisame, is kind of comparable to and didn't yet surpass Itachi, and still has his ways to go for both Pain and Obito. Not bad. The top 3 of the Akatsuki are some of the most hexed characters, so not surpassing them isn't an anti-feat. But then, we still have one final version of Kakashi to discuss, that being DMS Kakashi. Remember the question I asked in the thumbnail? Can he solo? Well, with this version of Kakashi, yes. Yes, he can solo. This is the biggest jump that Kakashi, or any character actually, has in terms of power. He goes from a spectator on the side to fighting Kaguya and damaging her even more than Naruto and Sasuke, arguably. This Kakashi can use the Susanoo, a perfect Susanoo that can become intangible at will. He can use the abilities of both the left and right eye, can use the Kamui Shuriken, which that attack alone could probably solo the Akatsuki, and he can combine Kamui with his regular attacks. It was such a powerful amp that Kishimoto had to take it away from Kakashi right after. Plus the speed amp he gets, like he's able to outspeed both Naruto and Sasuke by saving Sakura, and he could react to and blitz Kaguya and teleport her attacks away. This version of Kakashi is usually in discussion for the strongest character in Shippuden. Now, as a bonus, I'll briefly talk about post-war Hokage Kakashi. We don't get to see him in the manga or the anime, so we'll have to look at the novels. In the Kakashi Hiden novel, it's stated that Hokage Kakashi is much stronger than his War Arc counterpart. Now, I don't know how he got stronger than the version of himself that uses Kamui, since it was the strongest thing in his arsenal. The thing is, now that he doesn't have the Sharingan, his chakra doesn't get depleted in no time as before. He's also invented the purple lightning to make up for the Raikiri. I don't know how he fares against the Akatsuki specifically, since we don't really get to see Kakashi in action outside of the novels. He's stated to be able to take on an entire country by himself, but so were most of the Akatsuki. I mean, Sasori literally stated that he took down an entire nation with his performance of 100 puppets. All I can say is, this Kakashi has more experience than any ninja. He's already faced much greater threats than the Akatsuki, fought gods, and got to use the perfect Susanoo as a non-Uchiha. He didn't just surpass the Akatsuki by that point, he'd outlived them and moved past them. And to think that he doesn't get used in Boruto is pretty dumb, cause this man here, he's a legend, simple as that. If you've made it this far, I think I've earned that sub. Make sure you check out the rest of my channel, and I'll catch you guys later.